Okay, thank you for taking your time out today to attend our How to Support Your Supply Chain Operations with Lean Inbound Logistics webinar. My name is Andy Halebley, and I'm with the Georgia Tech Supply Chain and Logistics Institute. I'm here to support our host and presenter, Brad Bossens. Brad's a vice president with LeanCor Supply Chain Group with over 17 years of third-party logistics experience. He's worked across automotive, consumer goods, industrial manufacturing, retail, and food and beverage sectors. He's a trainer and consultant for LeanCor, which is a third-party logistics provider. You could find out more about them at www.leancor.com. He's also the instructor for our Lean Inbound Logistics course taking place September 29th and 30th in beautiful Savannah, Georgia. He's also instructor for our Lean Supply Chain Professional series. And with that introduction, I'll turn the session over to Brad.
Well, thanks, Andy. Good morning, everybody. It's a very exciting day for a webinar. I'm here at the Georgia Tech campus in Atlanta, and it's a wonderful, wonderful place. More exciting is that the Inbound Logistics webinar or course is going to be in beautiful Savannah, Georgia, September 29th and 30th. So the purpose of this webinar is to walk through some of the things that we'll be going through in the course, but also if you're not going to attend the course, this is about education, and certainly Georgia Tech would be the foremost in education, certainly from our perspective. So just to kick us off, before I get started, I just want to say hello to a couple of friends of mine. Connie Mitchell, I know you're out there in beautiful Lebanon, Missouri. Saw your name on the list, and it's been a long time, and thanks for joining. Also want to say hello to Richard Knight here in Atlanta, Georgia. We're in this journey together, as we like to say. So it's great to have the support. Now, just looking at this visual here, it's a fun slide because it's basically what we're looking at with inbound logistics. And just what is inbound? Well, it could be inbound to a factory, it could be inbound to a distribution center, it could be inbound to a store. But at the end of the day, we have product that needs to come to us. And how do we do that in the most efficient and lean way that produces the best results ultimately for our customers? And you'll kind of see there's different modes. Some of you are probably doing now. We might be doing some milk runs. LTL, or less than truckload, is when we have very small amounts, and there'll be multi-customer shipments through some of the big companies like Conway and ABF and some of the companies out there. Of course, we could have just direct truckload where suppliers are shipping product to us. And then ultimately the product needs to get inside the plant or our factories or our stores, and there's a lot going on here. There's weather, there's traffic, there's roads, there's distance, there's right quantity, right amount, right time, and source, and just quite a bit going on with inbound logistics. And our friends here at Georgia Tech and LeanCor, we thought that what an opportunity to really focus on inbound logistics course that really focuses on just those things. How do we pull from our suppliers and ultimately produce the best results in terms of quality, cost, and delivery? At the bottom, you'll see 4 boxes where our plan, do, check, and act, or check and adjust. Of course, that's the famous Deming cycle. And this is essentially the agenda for the work we'll be doing in Savannah. You'll notice that everything's starting with a plan, and some of you would use this type of acronym, but it's the cycle of planning and doing and executing this work and seeing how we did, and coming back and doing it again, and doing it better, and always recognizing that the problems are the difference between plan and actual. So a good plan would lead to this cycle. So inside of the plan, we start out with our order visibility, what's required. We're going to talk about how to select a pilot. Where do we start with a real lean inbound flow from supplier? We're going to talk through milk run design. We'll hit on packaging. Carrier selection and carrier management is a very big topic these days, especially with the carrier capacity crunch. So we're going to address that, and I'll address that in a couple slides ahead, and how we help mitigate that and make sure we have capacity. Communication planning. A lot of good plans failed because of lack of a good communication plan. So we would be remiss if we didn't include this. Inside of our doing and our checking and acting, this is where the rigor starts. It's discipline to route management, to pick up notification, yard controls, contingencies. We're going to be checking compliance on pickup, delivery, fill rates, carrier performance, material planner performance is another element that we'll be engaging in. Cubic utilization. Are we filling these trailers up as best we can without pushing material? Tough balance to make, but we'll address that too. You know, and then act. This doesn't just start with planning and doing. We need to approve, as any lean culture really focuses on. So regular reviews, failure modes, understanding what could go wrong and being prepared for those things. That's a failure mode. Root cause analysis, getting right to the root cause of some of our issues. But first we need to understand what our purpose is in the first place. So, and just on the last point is train. Another really important element of a great lean culture or operational excellence is that employees are engaged in some of these elements that leadership is talking about. They understand what things like root cause analysis means, continuous improvement, Kaizen, and some of the words that you guys might be using in your organization. So train is a very low-cost thing to do and a very, very powerful thing to do by engaging our people. So we move into this next discussion here. You know, it's really important to mention that lean looks at the system. We're looking at the total system from end to end, pickup to delivery, all the SKUs, all the right sizes, the quantities, the conditions. Inbound logistics is just part of that. If you look at this visual, you've got your from supplier management all the way through to outbound transportation to customers. There's a lot going on here. And inside of all of these elements, we typically have inventory positions. So that's what those yellow boxes, the yellow triangles are. It's a typical icon for inventory position, but this is what happens. We receive freight, we store it, and then we move it again, then we store it, and then we move it again, and then we store it. But if you just look at the total cost of all these things, it's just absolutely immense. And the very definition of value add, value and not value, is that would the customer pay for this? Is this right to charge a customer for? So when we recognize that there's opportunity to eliminate waste, a lot of the time it is in inventory and where we're storing inventory. One of the things we love to talk about at the Georgia Tech classes is just value stream thinking, and the way that companies are typically managed or structured is that you have top-down type of management. So just comparing to this visual, you'll have somebody in charge of inbound, you'll have somebody in charge of domestic transportation, somebody for international, somebody for distribution way up above, but who's taking responsibility for this entire value stream? So these are the kinds of principles that we'll challenge you with, and as we like to say, if we're not putting you out of your comfort level, we're not doing our job. So that's our purpose as trainers. So we focus on the total cost of fulfillment. When we look at inbound logistics, that's exactly what we're taking into account: the right amount of inventory, the right place, the right time, the right condition, the right quality. You'll notice these strategic and tactical rights at the top and the bottom, but these are the things we should be measuring. A lot of the times, maybe only we're measuring did it arrive on time. Maybe it's not the right quantity or condition, and so on and so forth. And of course, you see all the lean principles inside of here. Lean, as we say, the lean has been a factory focus, but how can we apply all these principles to inbound logistics? And of course, understanding that the challenges are, I'm no stranger to the challenges of making improvement in inbound logistics. And some of you on the phone I've worked with before. This is not an easy job. Here's just a couple bullets on why it isn't. Most of the activity just isn't visible. Where you can't see it. If it's not inside the four walls, I can't see it, I can't touch it, I can't talk to it. Ultimately, what we have is invisible activity going on, and we do our best through tools and systems to check on things, but there's just an incredible amount of activity outside of the four walls that is incredibly costly, and we can't see it. So we need to have good processes built in so that we can see where issues are happening. Multiple suppliers, multiple customers, multiple third parties, customer demand up and down, seasonality, variability in material behavior, lead time, and supplier performance. We know that variability, inside of variability is waste. We know that. We know that variability causes problems, and it is ultimately something we're trying to smooth out. So when we see variability, we know it's a problem. Of course, data, never always abundant. The joke goes where people are waiting on data or data is waiting on people. Either or, it's always a challenge. So knowing all of these things, this is how we've built our program around some of these challenges that we have. So just a fun little poll question. If you can just kind of type in your chat box either A or B. Question is, which best describes lean inbound logistics, A or B? So you'll see definition A, suppliers provide visibility of shipments, routes are designed and tendered daily, rate per mile, rigorously managed, cost per supplier, rigorously managed, incorrect shipment quantities are managed at delivery, versus definition B, where we're communicating shipping days to each supplier, and the network's visible, designed by engineers, based on plan versus actual. Total cost is managed rigorously. You'll see the comparison versus cost per mile of transportation. And of course, incorrect shipments managed at the point of pickup.
So yeah, it's A or B. I see a couple of people. We've got a couple of A's, a couple of B's. It's looking pretty even right now. I think we're even at A's and B's right now.
Standoff. Exciting. Well, that's good, because what we want to do is recognize issues, and I think, this is sort of the trap that we get into. Transportation cost is something that's on everybody's. It's visible. It's something that you can see. But the problem, some of the problems that we see with these comparisons is that if we're managing transportation outside of some of the other costs, the cost of carrying inventory, the cost of warehousing, the cost of perhaps using the lowest possible cost carrier and failing on performance. We see other issues pop up. We make the joke about the game whack-a-mole. You know the game, Andy?
Yeah.
You take your kids to the airport or the fair and they hit the mole, another one comes up. So, if we're chasing transportation only, then all of a sudden those costs are going to pop up somewhere else. So definitely what we would define as more of a lean inbound logistics strategy would be definition B. And if you can kind of compare the idea of managing at point of pickup versus point of delivery. I've heard some customers of mine talk about current state and visibility to inbound, and really it's where it starts. We want to understand what's coming, and we want to manage what's coming to us. But sometimes it's like Christmas morning. You open up your trailer, and it's what's on the trailer might not have been what I ordered. It's not the right quantity. Sometimes not even from the right source, and it's surprising what could be on a trailer. But if you just take this principle of quality at the source, very basic, one of the foundational lean principles, what we're doing is we're trying to manage the problems as far upstream as absolutely possible. So why don't we manage what goes on the trailer before it actually arrives? So just a sort of a tale of two companies. These are some very high level assessment questions, but these are some issues that you'll see. It's like I mentioned in a similar webinar recently, that it's like going to the doctor and they check your tongue and they check various different components or a mechanic, but these are your checklists. This is your diagnostic, and we recognize that if product's not being managed at the point of pickup, then there's probably a lot of other issues going on. Not that transportation costs should be managed. That's definitely not what I'm saying, but as part of an overall supply chain cost of fulfillment strategy, sometimes higher transportation cost leads to lower overall costs. So we start with the first step in really understanding what is demand. You know, the joke about forecasting is it's never right, and the closer we get to an actual, shorter the lead time in a forecast, the more correct it is. If you think about, I don't know if you're a golfer, Andy, but I'm not bad, not good. I'm working on it. But I know that if I looked at the weather next Saturday, it might say it's going to rain. But I probably won't believe that. I'll check the weather again on next Friday, and I'll believe that forecast. So a little bit of a similarity. But what we want is real-time data, real-time actual demand information. There's a lot of systems out there. You'll see some logos here, IBM, SAP, Oracle. Some of you use some of your own homegrown systems. Some of you don't have a system. But certainly what we need to do is solve the problem of how will we make demand visible. So if it's a factory, what is true demand? If it's a store, what is true demand? And replenish to that number, not what a forecast is. And that's essentially the first really big hurdle to get over. And you know, there's a little bit of planning that would happen ahead of time, but the best we can get the true demand numbers, the best we're gonna service inbound logistics replenishment. So we look at a few different things when we're trying to figure out what a pilot would be and where we're going to select our place to start. And if you think that we're in a place where where suppliers are managing transportation and shipping it, we certainly advocate that that's going to cause all kinds of visibility issues, that you take control of what's going on inbound, that you have visibility to what's going on inbound. If you're in a place where you don't have any of that right now, and I know some of you on the phone, so I know some of you do have good visibility, but it's more about just getting better, you know, and if you could kind of compare, you know, a 1 out of 10, getting from a 4 to a 6 out of 10, that's easy. Getting from an 8 to a 9 is very hard, and getting from a 9 to a 9.2 is even harder. So we really want to attack the thinking that goes inside of some of the elements of process development and process improvement. So the thinking of variation, there's math that will get to that, and certainly the demand variation, the coefficient of variation. And I'm not an engineer, but I understand variation. But essentially, how far are we off from average is what variation is telling us. What this chart here is showing you just some ideals. So if I had very low variation, very, very high volume, well, that would make sense that this particular supplier or this particular inbound mode would be on a static truckload. If I have a little bit of variation, pretty good volume, then static milk run. And I'll explain these in a second, but as we move all the way out, if we have absolutely no stability, this huge variation and very, very, very low volume, huge opportunity to problem solve. But where we start is the place where we could actually make a difference, and we want to start with high volume, and these types of routes are great because you can make a difference with cost improvement immediately. Now, what's the benefit of a stable route? You know, I think that, you know, one of the questions, comparisons in the traditional versus lean is that routes are dynamic or designed daily versus static routes. I think that's a bit of a hump to overcome. Imagine that you can provide a carrier with pickups and deliveries, pick up on Monday, delivery on Tuesday, pick up on Wednesday, deliver on Thursday, something that's very, very, very predictable and stable. What you can do is you can negotiate very, very long-term agreements with some of these carriers. It makes it easy for them, and it makes it easy for you. Now you have the same carrier, or if you have your own equipment, you've got the same driver and the same truck, or the same trailer in some cases. It's just absolutely amazing to have predictability in your inbound supply chain. Problems are much more visible that way. Now think about it in terms of the DCs and the plants. You know, they know when product's coming in, they can plan the right amount of resources, and you can problem solve when the plan doesn't actually happen. Great opportunity. What we'll see is that a lot of times you will have stability in your demand, but the way you're planning it is very much on the spot market rate game. Right? It literally is a game. If you're looking on spot markets these days, it's almost like you know, 9 a.m. in New York City on the stock market. It's really tough. And what I'm advocating is that you try to get out of that game and get into the stability game. Work with carriers that want to work with you and would really appreciate the stability. You know, as we work our way out, the milk run is, you know, that's when we have some capacity on our trailers, and we can pick up multiple suppliers, and we can deliver and the right amounts to maximize the use of that trailer capacity. Now, some of us have to use LTL. I know at LeanCor we have a lot of LTL movements, and it's a great service. But at the same time, you're going to have some challenges with that as well. You're going to have long lead times. Typically, you're going to have typically there's higher damages in the LTL world, is because there's more handling. It's just the challenge that the truckers have as well, is that we're going to handle these things more. So maybe you're going to have higher packaging costs, and your overall control is going to be a little bit different. With trucking or even your own in-source, you're going to have a lot of opportunities to do different value-added services. Where on the LTL side, it's not really their wheelhouse, but if you need small amount picked up, that's something we'll do. So. Just some different modes to look at. Now, then we get into the where do we start with particular suppliers just outside of modes. We got 4 boxes here, and just for the folks on the phone, you can just kind of select where would you start, A, B, C, or D. So A is a high volume and a very low fill rate. B is low volume, low fill rate. C is high volume, high fill rate. And D is low volume, high fill rate. Where would you start?
Yeah, so based on those choices, if you could just type in your answer in the question window. I have a C, high volume, high fill rate. Well, I'm getting many C's, so I have multiple C's so far. All C's.
Good.
Ooh, yep, C's across the board.
Good. Yeah, I think we've got an alignment on C's everywhere.
Yeah.
But you know, I would challenge it a little bit, just in a sense, and it's probably more of a tricky question. But you know, as lean thinkers, we want to solve problems. This is definitely about cost improvement, no question. If anybody doesn't think that lean isn't about being more profitable and being better at customer service, then there's a huge disconnect, absolutely. So we have high volume, high fill rate. So what that's saying is that we have high volume, but we're also doing a great job. I would almost advocate that we look at where we have high volumes and we have low fill rates. You know, in some cases we have a very high volume supplier, but they're just not getting it right. And for whatever reason, the communication plan might be wrong. Some of the inputs, the data, the communication plan, all kinds of reasons why things might be wrong. But first of all, we need to know what is the volume of our inbound, and who are the large ones, and of course, what are the fill rates? And are the fill rates clear? Do we know what we expect and what is inside of a fill rate? On time and full is something that we advocate, and there's a lot of detail that goes inside of just those 4 words. So we start with something that's high volume, and then fix the fill rate. What we've seen is that there's an opportunity now to get some attention and support for you and your initiatives, because if you fix a big problem, you're ultimately going to get the support and the resources you need to move on to other things. So this isn't a science at all, Andy. This is just some different ways of looking at where to start. So there's as we say, there's no silver bullet, but this is about fixing problems. I would like just Pareto's law himself. This is the 80-20 principle. You know, if we want to focus on the critical few that make a big impact. So focusing on the low volume, low fill rate things probably would get a lower grade, but who's kidding who? You just might have some issues that you need to fix right away. So that's why I would advocate starting with the high volume, high fill rate. Seems like high volume, low fill rate. Seems like high volume, high fill rate. We don't really have a problem right now. So let's focus on where we can make a big difference. So some of you are using the terminology PFEP, or plan for every part. It's important to identify what that is. So some of us have different definitions, and there's a lot that goes in a plan for every part. And essentially that's what it is. What's the parts plan? Typically this is a database that's got all the critical information to make really good business decisions. And typically this starts with packaging dimensions. If you don't have packaging dimensions, this is critical. You need to have packaging dimensions. You need to know if product is stackable. The warehouse needs packaging dimensions because they need to understand how much cubic footprint this is going to require inside of the warehouse or the line side and things like this. And often, too, we recognize that this is where a lot of times we struggle to get past even packaging file. We'll notice that a packaging file might even be 70% full and 80% full, but that if you have bad data going into a route design, you're going to have problems and waste inside of your route design. We advocate that this is where you spend a rigorous amount of time, PDCA, on making sure that you have accurate packaging dimensions. When I worked at Toyota years ago, there was this was a plant launch in Europe. There was an incredible amount of rigor on making sure that packaging dimensions were correct. And any time that a supplier shipped on non-standard packaging, we problem solved. And there was a huge issue with not shipping in standard packaging because you're ultimately throwing off the route design. But other things that will eventually go into a plan for every part could be your mins and maxes. It could be your supermarket. It could be your quantities on hand and planned versus actual, and all kinds of great things where packaging file can expand into a plan for every part, essentially. So you just see some different cubic utilization recommendations. 26 floor spots is typical for skids, 44,000 pounds, but know that your floor spots is just the floor. Some of the optimizers out there will just take a look at floor spots rather than liquid cube, which I know some of you folks are doing. Cubic meters is something that I would use growing up in Canada and all. We would look at 70 cubic meters and 65 cubic meters is something you could fit on a 53 dry foot van, but you obviously want to leave some space for unloading and loading. I'd like to talk about some really key lean inbound logistics concepts too, and this is once again talking about the thinking that goes inside of route design and route planning and execution and ultimately continuous improvement. Some of you that know us, and if you've met us in some of the classes here at Georgia Tech, we talk about the three amigos, and we talk about them because they're critical to improving inventory turns and ultimately lean flow strategy. And the three amigos being come one, come all. They have to go together. They're a combination. So a little bit of humor, but it helps us remember things. First concept being lot size. If you look at the view on the right, first of all, customer daily requirements might be 75 units, but our lot size is 50. So what happens every day here is that from a material planning perspective, we order 2 lots, and then the next day we order 1, then we order 2, then we order 1, then we order 2, and this cycle continues until we have a ton of inventory buildup, and it's just not stable. From a lean perspective, we want every day to look the same. Lot size is a place where you can focus. If customer requirements are 75, well, 25 fits into 75 really nice. Three lots a day, and just put that on flow. Great opportunity for improving the flow inside of organizations. One place to look certainly is look at the minimum order quantities that you're required to pick up from suppliers. look at your customer requirements and just compare the two. If the lots don't fit, then you've got a huge opportunity for improvement. Next slide being the frequency, and something that we in transportation costs are certainly challenged with. If you look at the first example at the top, you've got 1 truckload a week. You know, these are obviously hypothetical numbers, but if we've got the entire week's consumption inside of that trailer, what's happening is we've got a lot of product on Monday, we consume down through Friday, then we've got another truck that needs to come in the next week. So traditional thinking, that's cheap transportation cost. That might feel good from a rate per mile or a cost per supplier perspective. But the obvious challenge here is the days on hand inventory and the balancing the days on hand inventory versus the cost of transportation. So in that once per week, my average days on hand is going to be 2.5 days of inventory. So in other words, Monday and Friday would be the beginning and end divided by 2. So on average, we have 2.5 days of inventory inside of this particular warehouse or supermarket or maybe a trailer yard or somewhere. But 2.5 days. But if we were to move to 1 delivery per day, and these are concepts, right? So we need to apply this thinking to what we're doing. 1 a day means we're living with about half a day of inventory on hand. So we've got a lot more flexibility. If I'm a material planner and I know a truck's going to leave a supplier every day, then I can make a lot more changes to what I need to bring in so I can satisfy demand exactly. You know, at the bottom, you'll just see some different metrics on improvements, and you know, this isn't a complicated build-up, but the thinking should be pretty clear, right? So the obvious challenge is, well, I now have to pay for a truck to deliver 5 times a day. So there's going to be some balanced trade-offs there. Third concept being leveled flow, and this is something we might call pitch or cadence, and some different terms you might be using, but you can see that if we're delivering on a standard delivery time, 7, 9, 11, 1, 3, what we've got here is actual standard work for truckload deliveries. Some of the automotive plants are doing really well with this concept, and the more they get into it, the more they know that they can improve a little bit more, but without draining the inventory supermarket, of course. So there's a lot of thinking that goes on here. But if I'm a warehouse, now I know how many people to plan. I just don't. I need to understand what the plan is and when they're coming. So if for example, I have a truck supposed to be here, or it's supposed to depart at 7 a.m., and that's what I'm going to PDCA around. 9 a.m., that's what I'm going to be PDCA around. If it's late, if it's early, then that's where we problem solve. So what we're doing is creating stability with these three concepts, but also inventory turns is certainly an output of this. Transportation costs would be a challenge. So we get inside of the network, and you know, just having visibility of what your network looks like is such a powerful thing, to know where your suppliers are and what your frequencies are, and you know, we can do creative things now with these 3 concepts of lot size and frequency and level flow. As you might cross dock, or you might use consolidation points. You can do things to manage transportation costs. You might pick up a week's worth of product, but only deliver a day's worth at a time. Just many creative things that you can do inside of a robust network, and just having visibility to what demand is and where your locations are. You know, and then once we've really understood where we want to start and what we want to do, there's a ton of collaboration that goes on with these things, and what we call value stream thinking, but engaging suppliers and what our plan is, and engaging the operations team, and alignment, the great word to you want to focus on. But the discipline starts here too, and this is where we really need to manage pickups. We really need to manage deliveries. We really need to manage supplier expectations, and the carrier management program. And there's a ton of opportunity for anything to fall apart. And one of the things we taught in our very first, in our problem solver course, when we talk about what is lean in the first place, we really want people to understand that, and we bring in the second law of thermodynamics, and that's already a big word for me, is entropy. What we believe that processes want to fall apart. They wake up in the morning and they say, I'm going to fall apart today. So what your job to do is, as lean leaders, is to know where those break points are and manage them daily. And out of that, we develop tools and different things to help solve problems and make problems visible. But it's the thinking and the processes that fix problems, not the tools. And that's really important. You'll see this visual on the left. This is a picture of a screen in our office at LeanCor up in Kentucky, and we've got different metrics that tell us if we have a certain amount of issues and compliance on certain things, whether it be a packaging file perhaps, and process times, how long it takes to cover and expedite, and really problem solve around some of those wastes. And it's a tool that works for us, but it's solving the problem of visual management, of seeing as a group and knowing as a group and acting as a group rather than one poor person in a shipping office that has to deal with some of the issues. Lots of metrics. We recommend you understand what the critical few things that you're going after. Otherwise, you just spend more time doing measurements than real problem solving. Plan versus actual. And why didn't we hit that actual? Why didn't we hit that actual? And that's really where the great discussion comes through in the collaboration. Other things you can look at is your cubic use. A ton of opportunity in cubic utilization. I think I heard somewhere that if you open up any trailer door on the highway, I'm right close to I-85 and 275, and if I could see inside of these trailers, they'd typically be half empty, and that's quite frankly, that's a shame. It's we're struggling for carrier capacity, yet we're only half utilizing some of the trailers out there. So let's get inside of the thinking and solve some of those problems. Engage the carriers in your decision. Engage your customer. Engage your suppliers. Engage material planning, and build those teams to really understand what we're trying to accomplish. And we want to make sure that it's something that's in it for everybody. Transportation cost is only part of it. And just a comment about lean measurement systems. It's funny. We spend a lot of time on metrics. A great question that we ask if I'm going to a Gemba somewhere, I'm going to a warehouse or a factory or plant, and one of the first things you do is you look at what we're measuring, and I'll ask, why are we measuring this, and what problems is it solving, and how does it connect to the overall purpose of the organization? These are great questions to ask because they typically drive some hopefully good discussion, sometimes confusion. The other thing that I'll see, and this is probably more common than it should be, is that metrics typically aren't up to date. You'll see last May's metrics up on the wall, and that's just like, those are the basics. Like, if we can't keep these things up to date, then we're causing more problems, and everybody knows it. Team members see it. They know that they can't. If we don't take our metrics seriously, then why do we even look at it? But we want metrics that add value and improve processes, and everybody truly understands. There's just a few examples over here on the right-hand side. We've got on-time pickup and delivery. Typically, on-time delivery is something that's managed. On-time pickup is something that's often not managed. Window time compliance for these things, and really getting around the rigor. If I'm a supplier, I want to know what time the truck is going to be here, because remember, I'm a factory too, and I have to build inventories as well. And if I have to have too much finished goods inventory because the inbound truck might be here or might be here tomorrow, ultimately what we're doing is we're driving more costs inside of the system. I see it often where a DC might have to store 2 or 3 or 4 days of finished goods material when the lead times for delivery are only 1 or 2 days. So that there's probably at least a day and a half, 2 days of inventory that can be bled out of that system and provide total cost improvement. And why are we doing this? Well, because we don't have a rigorously managed inbound logistics system. We're not PDCAing around pickups and deliveries and things like that. We also, trailer utilization is, as I mentioned earlier, full trucks lead to fewer trucks. It's really that simple. So this doesn't jive too much with my comment about more frequency as well. So this is where we just need to be creative. How do we find different volumes to combine inside of our trailers? How do we use cross-docking to maximize, to minimize lead time, maximize cubic utilization, minimize required inventory on hand? Of course, there's a ton of other things we could be looking at. I think just the important aspect is what we've learned. Certainly, what we've learned from Toyota. You almost got your quality. You've got your quality. You've got your delivery, and you've got your cost. And of course, safety being the main metrics of a plant leader, a division leader, general manager. And inside of those things are a lot of problems. So these are typically the things we look at. And I heard somebody tell me there's a restaurant somewhere that says delivery, cost, quality, pick any two. Any two you want. And some of you probably heard something like that. But certainly we learned from Toyota and some other companies out there that are quite advanced in this area that you can have them all. You can have quality, you can have delivery, you can have cost, but it takes rigorous management of these things. Certainly with it doesn't happen overnight. So, just to remind everybody, we're going to be in beautiful Savannah, Georgia. If you haven't been to Savannah, it's just a wonderful place. The course is on September 29th and 30th. It'll be held at the Hyatt Regency. There's 20% discount code available.
Yeah, and I'll be sending that out in an email to follow up with this webinar.
Yeah, and it's a Monday and Tuesday. I imagine, like myself, I'll be going in a little bit early with my wife and enjoying the city of Savannah on Saturday, Sunday, I think.
It's down by the waterfront. I mean, it's a beautiful venue. There's going to be a tour of a Target distribution center. So, people love going on the tour. It's neat to see, to get on the floor and be where the work is being done and see how some of these ideas and concepts are being put into practice.
Yeah, and just to talk about the workshop itself, like we know, like I was not a big fan of sitting in lectures at school, and we wouldn't do that to any of you. What we will be doing in this class is we're going to be focusing on the principles and the problems and help you figure out your solutions through a very well thought out case study. It's a 2-day course. By Wednesday, you will be able to go back to your organization and really understand some of the key concepts that we've really talked about here today. We're going to build a roadmap for your case study, but it's very applicable to some of the things we're doing. So that's we expect you to be on your feet quite a bit. There'll be some mini report outs and quite frankly a lot of fun. Typically we have really good classes and a lot of good conversation, people from different industries, as we go to the Target Distribution Center on the Tuesday morning, transportation will be provided, of course, and we're going to see some great things. Target's done amazing work in their logistics network, and again expanded up to Canada. So great for them for having us, and we're going to enjoy the Gemba.
Thanks. We wanted to give people an opportunity to ask some questions. So, if you want to type any questions into that window on the right side. I saw a couple come in. James was asking, the trucking market is extremely tight these days. What are ways to mitigate this through a lean strategy?
Yeah, so this is certainly something that on everybody's plate. Like there's some routes that I remember as a traffic coordinator. There were the cost of these routes were like literally $1 a mile or $1.03 a mile that are actually $4. And in some aspects I'm kind of proud of the trucking companies because they've really taken it hard the last several years. Extremely low margins and low visibility information and everything that they have on their truck is extremely hot. So in a sense, I'm kind of proud of them. They're not going to hire ahead. They just need to understand what their requirements are going to be, because equipment is very expensive. So during the 2007 and 2008 times, you definitely didn't want to own a truck because it might have been sitting and you're paying for it. So how do we mitigate this? We want to build stability in our inbound logistics system. We want to provide visibility and use our partners to collaborate to make sure we lock in some of that stability. So if I know that I'm going to have, if I can build static route plans, then I should be able to buy capacity ahead for 2, 3, 4, 6 months. Who knows? Depending on your relationship with your carrier and your carrier strategy. If you build stability, you will create opportunities for the truckers as well. The last thing they need is last minute. I need this. I need that, because it's going to be a service issue with them as well. So we're about building stability in our route plans, and then planning ahead and managing that capacity 2, 3, 4 months out.
Okay. Okay. I see another question here. It says, for the course, you mentioned that students will map a current inbound logistics network. What does that entail?
Yeah, so first of all, visibility to the supplier network and the outbound network is always a great place to start. It's but there's some tools inside of mapping that we'll do as well. And in particular, we're going to do some value stream mapping. So a lot of you have heard of this. A lot of you have done it. Some of you have heard of it, never done it. I've facilitated these quite a bit, and the goal here is to teach you to see waste. The very first book on value stream mapping, Rother and Shook, and of course through that Lean Enterprise Institute, was called Learning to See. So we're going to do a very simple value stream mapping exercise inside of the course that really is mapping the flow of value or the flow of materials, particular SKU or SKU family from origin to destination, and then have really fulfilling discussion on what do we see. We may see push, not pull. We may see variation in volume or variation in delivery. Information flow is a big part of that as well. A lot of times we'll realize that information exists, it's not being conveyed, and if it is being conveyed in the right time, overall stability occurs. So we'll do some visibility mapping. We'll do some value stream mapping current state. We'll do value stream mapping future state. The gap, which is the difference between where we are today and where we want to be. And inside of that will be a route design pilot. We'll design a milk run, and we'll build a communication plan for that activity that involves failure modes, knowing what to do next, what could go wrong, and what to expect from a cost perspective, from a delivery perspective, and from a quality perspective. We see this roadmap is no different than how we would, at LeanCor, would handle a customer problem as well. We want to understand the route, we want to understand where we need to be, we want to understand how to get there, and what to expect along that journey. So the roadmap becomes the project management tool, if you will, to get us to current future state.
Okay. I see another question here relating to the course. If I attend the course, do I need to bring a computer?
No, you don't. We'll have Georgia Tech will have the material printed out in binders, of course, but we're going to be very interactive. I'm a strong believer, LeanCor, strong believers in A3 thinking. We're going to develop some A3s or one-page types of project summaries that are very visible. So it's very workshop related. What I'd rather, if you do have your laptop with you, there's going to be some things we'll talk about, some resources, some websites where you can find some tools. And a lot of times some of the students like to go on site, go online and check some of these things out. So if you do have your computer with you, then I'm sure it'll only help you, but you absolutely don't need one We're going to be very, very much post-its and discussions and a lot of fun.
Leah, let me see. Look through here for some questions.
Here's a good a good question. So, shouldn't we head for single piece flow to have a lean process? Great question. So, single piece flow. I think what I would call this is something our CEO has been using a little bit of the lean. We call it the lean trap. So, in other words, I read a book, and the book says this is what you need to do, and then you go and do that because the book said so. What we're trying to do is have you think about what you need to solve your problem specifically. One-piece flow is something that works for some organizations. It just quite frankly makes sense. It makes sense for Toyota, for example. Honda doesn't do one-piece flow. They do different size of batches, and that's what makes sense for them. So just because Toyota does it doesn't mean it's going to be right for everybody. So take example of pencils. If I was making pencils, it wouldn't make sense to make one pencil at a time. Just the cost of these things just don't make sense. But there is some thinking that goes involved. There's definitely smaller lots, higher frequencies, leveled flow would be a lean process. That sometimes gets confused for one single piece flow. We do believe in getting to as low as possible, but it might not be one single piece to benefit the total overall cost of fulfillment. It's a great question, and I'd love to have this discussion more because it just absolutely depends on what's possible and the system and how big the supply chain is. Some of our suppliers are over in China. As much as 60 to 75% of overall inbound parts are coming from overseas. So, as Jim Womack once said, that lean and overseas shipments just don't exactly go together very well because we can't do these creative things like one-piece flow. Certainly, if my product was right across the road, I could have shorter lead times and better reactivity to doing these things. So it's about thinking. It's about what's best for me or you, and how to get there. We define where we want to be, and then the work becomes the gap, how to get there. So, great question. Really great question.
Okay. If anybody has any other questions, if they want to go ahead and type those in, we'll address those. I mean, while we wait on that, I just want to mention on this last slide, it's some of the upcoming courses that we have for September. Instead of House of Lean, I guess we have the month of Lean here at SEL. So we've got our Building the Lean Supply Chain Problem Solver, September 16th through 18th. We have our Lean Warehousing course, September 23rd through 25th. You know, I need to mention again, Brad, apart from being the VP at LeanCor, he is our instructor for this Lean Inbound Logistics course that's happening at the end of September. He's also instructing in the Lean Warehousing course, and he's also instructing in the Building the Lean Supply Chain Problem Solver course. So, I mean, Brad's a great instructor, very interactive discussions during the courses. So we're really happy to have him with us. I do need to mention that our hotel block ends September 8th. So, you know, if you want to make sure to get our rate at the Hyatt Regency for the Savannah, Georgia Lean Inbound Logistics course, make sure to sign up for that. You know, use the coupon code that we give you, and then go ahead and sign up for your hotel room to get that discounted rate. For those folks who can't come to the live courses, whether they're here in Georgia Tech in our Global Learning Center or in Savannah, you know, we have our Building the Lean Supply Chain Leader course online. So you can go to our website at www.sel.gatech.edu, you know, find that listing, and if you want to take one of those courses out of the Lean series online, we encourage you to do that as well. Okay, so I'm looking, I mean, in terms of questions, we have one more question. This is always a one that people ask. What TMS do you recommend?
TMS. So transportation management software would I recommend. You know, to be honest with you, this is a strategic decision that involves not only partnership, but really clear focus on scope of what's required from a TMS. The work around a TMS is understanding what do you need it for, what will you use this TMS for, and then are there some options out in the streets that could service those. A lot of great companies out there. I wouldn't recommend one. I think there's a lot of great ones out there. At LeanCor, we've developed our own internal system because we felt that there was some things out on the shelves that just couldn't do everything that we needed it to. So I think your work really starts with what do you need? What problem are you trying to solve? Is the first question we should always be asking with every activity we're doing. I've seen some very expensive WMS, TMS decisions made that ultimately once you get into this decision, you have a hard time getting out of it. So understand what you need it for, and then see if the providers can satisfy those.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brad. There was one more question for me. Somebody asked if this is being recorded. It is. The archive will be available later this week, and I'll include a link in the email that I send out. That'll either be later today or tomorrow morning. Want to thank Brad again. Want to thank everybody for taking the time. We hope you found this interesting. If you want to learn more about these topics, please come to the Lean Inbound Logistics course. If you have any questions that you think of after this, feel free to send an email to webinar, webinar, @scl.godtech.edu, and we'll get back to you on that. If you have any questions, send it there as well. Hey, thank you, and have a good rest of your day.